Good morning and welcome to In Conversation With. This morning we have Rhian Simpson from HRS Asset Management. Rhian is an IFA that I know through a lovely networking group called U2B Networking. Rhian is an expert in the financial world, which obviously has taken a massive hit at the moment during the coronavirus crisis. And Rhian is here today to advise and help people through that crisis and also how to plan to come out of the crisis. Rhian, no doubt we're in a far different world to what we were even 4 weeks ago. What's your take on the current situation?
Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, before we went into full lockdown, one of the biggest threats that was being talked about was recession, global recession. And at that time, there were three types of recession that were being talked about, and it makes the acronym LOVE. So the L is a drop in the stock market and then a long period of recession that bottoms out and lasts a long period of time. The U, the U is more of a gradual dip and then coming out the other side. And then the V is a short, sharp dip and then we come out the other side after the crisis. And that's what, at the moment, even a couple of weeks later on, this is what economists are still hopeful that we're going to get the V-shaped type recession, that we're going to get obviously this crisis point that's going to happen, and then we're going to get more of a sharper recovery than say we saw after the 2008 crisis. But I think as time's gone on, people are now a bit worried about the exit strategy, obviously, out of lockdown and what that's going to look like when we come out in terms of the more far-reaching effects for workers who have been off, who may face redundancy fears, obviously the self-employed, and what the damage has been done to workers in those areas. So I haven't got a crystal ball, but I have been listening to a lot of comment on this. And I think, there is a threat going forward. There's lots of opportunities though as well. So we see growth in obviously technology sectors, people utilising technology. There are still going to be the industries around that where people need the consumable industries, so people still need food, don't they? I mean, the supermarkets are absolutely they're doing lots of business at the moment, and we've got all those basic needs that we need as humans that are going to still need to be there when we come out the other side. So so that's a start. That's a kind of a broad view really of how things are at the moment.
And I think to supplement that, I've got two sides of the story, really. The first one is obviously yesterday's real bad news about Debenhams, where it's going to administration. Perhaps it's not unexpected because it has been talked about for quite a while, but I think it's certainly been hastened during this crisis. And then on the other hand, I do a network marketing business, and they've took everything remotely. So they've taken on the technology side and then they've gone remote. And it's going to have an effect on business because some people can't use Zoom or WebEx or whatever systems people are using, but at least they can still trade. So there's two sides of the argument there, isn't there, economically?
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think what's happened is particularly, the retail sector was already struggling, wasn't it, before this happened, in terms of the shops on the high street, and there was a big movement onto online sales. And I think what's happened is some companies are going to come out of this having got those processes in place, and they're going to fare much better than, like you said, a company perhaps like Debenhams that's been a bit slow. Some of companies have been a bit slow on the uptake. I was quite shocked a couple of weeks ago when Next suspended their operations. I read something that said that they're a very successful retail company, and they've probably got enough for about 3 months to keep the company going for 3 months without any trading. They've got enough cash on their balance sheet to do that. But once that period finishes, then, they need to start trade. And I think that's the key thing at the moment. It's whether we start introducing services and we start letting certain sectors of people out who can start the economy, can start everything going again, and we protect the most vulnerable, and we do it in a staged method. That's one, isn't it? That's one, what's the word?
Way out.
Solution. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's already shown. I think the policing of that is going to be, is going to be quite a challenge, and they're going to have to be very clear on how that's managed. I think rather than, when we had the key workers, going back into the work, what did the key worker mean? There was a lot of toing and froing about that. So, I think a lot of the investments that we look after are very well diversified across many sectors. So, the stock market isn't a portfolio. So when a stock market drops by a certain amount, people automatically think, oh my God, that's what my portfolio is going to have gone down by. And that's simply not true. So what we have to do as advisors is we have to help people to not use their emotions to reason with, because obviously there's a lot of anxiety at the moment, and that's absolutely normal. And I think the fact that I used to work in the NHS in mental health services has helped me quite a lot to, literally just talk through people's anxieties. I'm not even calling up and saying, starting straight away with, oh, are you worried about the stock market, or, any questions about their finances. I'm just simply phoning people and saying, how are you doing at the moment? How's your family? How's the grandchildren? Have you managed to see so and so? I know we know our clients really, really well, and it's really nice to be able to just ask those questions. So, yeah.
I think that brings on to the next point. Really, is you're right. People we're social animals. People just want to talk at the moment, and certainly when I've moved from, as you know, I've got a media business and a network marketing business, and I've moved over towards the network marketing business. But I'm not talking to people about it. I'm saying, "How are you?" It's a simple question. So, Rhian, we have to move on economically. That's the way of the world. It's what keeps the world ticking. So I'm looking at things now, Rhian. Desperate situation. How can you help me?
Well, I think the thing that I could help you with, I think from an advisor's perspective, for people who are, I suppose cash is king at the moment, isn't it? And people are struggling with cash flow. I think from an advisor's perspective, I think that we're perhaps not the professionals that are best placed to deal with that immediate need. I think I would probably say that how I could help people is to point them in the direction of, a good accountant, or help through the networks that I have to identify people that might be able to help. So, trying to give people the business opportunities that they might need. I certainly, one of our key pieces of advice is that we can't advise unless people are very, very desperate. We would advise people do not take their money out of these medium to long term investments if they can possibly do so. You should not be given the advice to set up those kinds of investments if you haven't got an emergency cash fund, either corporate or personal. If you haven't got some money saved, if you've been given advice to put all your money into stocks and shares and not keep anything on the balance sheet, then you've been given bad advice, I'm afraid. I think, I would say to people, if you can try and hang tight. What I can say to people is that if they're drawing any income from those investments, you might want to look at reducing the amount you draw out. But I would say to people, now is the time to use your emergency reserves. So I'm afraid I can't wave a magic wand and sort of make money appear, but I can point you in the right direction. I think accountants at the moment are probably best placed to talk about the benefits, the government benefits that are available. But I think personally, I know this might, I feel like the government, they've done quite a lot. I think it's not going to hit everybody, unfortunately. And I think there are going to be pockets of people that are going to struggle, but I think we'll have to try and, look at things when we come out the other side, I think.
And I'd like to take a look at the other side. Obviously, everything you said now is keep calm, don't panic,
Yeah.
try and keep investing, try and keep them investments there, because they are actually making money during a difficult time. But we are going to come out of this, and it's looking like it's going to be May time, if we're honest.
Yeah.
And we're going to come out at a very, very flat market. People are still going to be very wary, aren't they? Even though we come out in May, say May time, even though we come out, people are still going to be very wary.
Yes.
What do you do then? Do you sit? Because what we don't want people to do is to panic, withdraw everything, have all the cash themselves, because then we'll have no money in the monetary system, we'll have no money in the banks. We'll be in a far worse situation economically, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of, if we take a broad view, I think there are probably a lot more people than we think that are actually investing at this time. Yes, it's not there has been a lot of money taken out of the system. I think I would say I've spoken to 2 clients that have been particularly panicked at the moment. The rest of them quite a few of them remember the 2008 crisis. So I think my advice would be, when we come out to the other side, is that we need to make sure people's emergency cash reserves are built up. I think people will be more interested in protection as well and getting things in place. But our investment strategy is still exactly, it would still be assessing people's risk. I mean, people might feel more cautious after this. That's okay. Then at that point, maybe they look at a bit more of a cautious investment, and then go down that route. I think there's going to be enough people taking advantage actually of the cheaper stocks at the moment. I don't think that's going to happen, Ben. But certainly our output as a country is going to be massively reduced, but it'll pick up again.
And that goes back to one of your early comments where you said, where there's crisis, there's opportunity, and there certainly will be opportunity. And people take advantage of the opportunity because that's the way we work. That's the way of the world. And obviously, property is going to reduce in value. That's going to perhaps be one where people invest a little bit more, because construction hasn't stopped. So the quantity of construction is still going on. That's still building, and they're going to need to fill it. So obviously, that's not going to be as valuable as it was, because a lot of moves have paused, haven't they, while this is going on. The events industry has taken a massive hit. And so people are going to want to. There'll be a lot of events that come out, as you always do. There'll be a lot of events that actually come out of this, because there'll be a big gaps in the market where event companies haven't been able to survive, unfortunately. I mean, I work in many events, and my work in progress board has just been demolished. But that's the way it is. I'd rather people be safe. Yeah. But then, of course, people aren't going to survive. There's going to be lots of events. So, like you said, there's going to be lots of opportunity. But property is certainly going to be massive, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think, going back to events, I think there's been a lot of, you'd hope that people, I think we might end up with a 2021 that's absolutely jam-packed with stuff going on. I know for yourself, if it's a yearly event, then obviously if this year's cancelled, next year will go ahead. They're not going to do 2 in 1 year necessarily. But I think for sort of weddings and, things like that, people have kind of rebooked, haven't they? And I think the travel industry is going to come out of this. It's going to be very, very difficult. But I think that people will start using those things. I think we forget. I think when we're in this, it feels all encompassing. When we come out the other side, we're going to go back to doing the things that we did, a lot of the things that we did previously. And going back to property, That's an interesting one. I guess we are still, there's still a lot of demand, isn't there, potentially for property. We've got a client who was hoping to buy in April, and this is before the lockdown. So obviously that's not going to happen now. And we've got a couple of clients that are in the process of sort of selling property at the moment, and they've got buyers that are just, everything's kind of slowed down, so they're just waiting for that to go through. It'll be interesting to see how property comes out the other side, I think, and what that looks like. I think that, you know, that we might see a depressed, I think it's not going to be for as long as the banking crisis lasted years and years, because fundamentally there was, you know, a real problem at the centre of that, and it took years and years of, I mean, we've had austerity for years and years, haven't we, from that? I don't think
We have, yeah. But it still doesn't feel like banks are on our side, does it, at the moment? I mean, you know, it's not, you know, the FSB were doing a fabulous job trying to get loans, etc. Then and the government work with the government, but then all you hear is small businesses saying haven't been accepted, and it's still a problem out there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the banks they need to pay us back. We helped them out in 2008, and they need to play their part. I think the government will, you know, be cracking down on that and trying. But yeah, there's going to be lots of glitches in the system, because there's just the volume of people. This is unprecedented, isn't it? Have you had? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. It's a conversation, Rhian.
Yeah. Have you had? What's been your experience with kind of getting government help, or sort of from your own personal experience, but also from speaking to others?
My own personal experience, I just invested £4,000 in the business in February by getting what's called permission for commercial operations with my drone. That involved a lot of courses, buying the drone, etc. And I just invested £4,000 in that into the business, which is through bank loans, etc. Which has taken, but they've been very good. When I spoke to them, they've been very good. On the other hand, I went to hand a check in yesterday with a slight spelling mistake, and the people on the ground floor said they can't accept it. And I took the letter in which I had saying my address, and I said, look, I know it's not your fault, but surely at the minute you don't want passing of checks going in between a lot of people. Just accept the check. If you need to give the guy a call, here's the letter saying it's my address. And it was almost like they kind of weren't willing to help that small problem. And that, I know it's only a small issue and it's a name on a check, but with the cash as it is, that was a big, you know, it could be a big thing for people, because that could be their last 60, 100, 200 pounds. Yeah. Other people are still saying they can't get access to cash. I've applied for something with another bank, and I've not heard back, and they said they'll be back within 7 days. It's now 2 weeks. It's all about communication. And and also you get this big Rishi Sunak the other day come out with this big announcement: we're going to help, we're going to help, we're going to help. I don't see the cash getting through to the front line at the moment. And okay, you know, the central bank dropped the interest rates to the lowest ever, and that's obviously going to help people with debts, but it's not going to help people with savings. But of course, they don't want to help people with savings. They want people to spend their savings to get the cash into the system. So banking wise at the moment, it's very much still them and us, and that's not where it should be. It's still very much them and us, and that's a sad situation. And it's like you said, we helped them out in 2008 through our taxes, through that. They've got to come forward and say, look, you know, we will help you. And I mean, I'm on quite a few business forums on Facebook, and they're all saying they don't know where to go. They don't know how to get it. The banks aren't helping. It's the major banks. It's the major banks, and that's the disappointing. It's the banks that have got the staff to deal with this. It's the banks that have got the capacity to deal with this, even at social distancing measures.
When you look at the messages that they deliver in their commercials, you know, it's all this stuff about, you know, being together and by your side and all this stuff. That's quite frustrating. I think what would have been helpful is the government should have provided almost step-by-step, you know, instructions on how to, because I must admit, if I was doing this, if I was applying for any of these loans, I wouldn't know where to start with it. Like you said, you know, you could go on the government site, but it just needed a bit more. Well, I wouldn't. It just needed them to be firmer with the banks, didn't it, to actually open up that channel, I think, is what we're saying.
So, yeah, as we say, Rhian, the banks really are not helping. But I think economically, I think it's a massive sit-and-wait situation at the moment. Just give us, to end the conversation, give us 2 or 3 top tips.
Right, so the first one would be that indices can look a lot worse than individuals' portfolios. So don't panic. Have a chat if you've got an advisor, or you can always pick up the phone and talk to me if you're worried about how your pensions or investments are performing. The key is diversification. So many products will have lots of different things within them, different investment assets. So again, if this isn't the case, talk to your advisor or come and talk to me about that, and I can take you through that. The main individuals who this is affecting at the moment for people with investments are people that need income or were planning to take anything out of their pension or investments. So again, advice would be maybe to look at reducing the income to a safe withdrawal limit based on the pot at the moment. So we can help to do that. It might be about delaying retirement for the time being. It certainly would not benefit you. Do not just withdraw everything. You could have a massive tax bill at the end of it, and you will be capitalising on these losses. So you don't lose money until you take money out, is the key. And there are lots of good guidance services around, but we as advisors can give you advice and sort of steer you forward. So that's my last words for you, Ben.
And how can people contact you, Rhian?
The best way to contact me is by email or by calling me on my mobile, which is 07854 523 117. I am home schooling at the moment, so if you leave me a message, I will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
So a big thank you this morning to the fabulous IFA Rhian, and also a teacher at the moment, and also many other things, I should imagine. Rhian, stay safe and healthy is the biggest thing during this crisis. All the best to you and your family, and thank you very much for joining us this morning.